This is Cruise Radio.
I cruise a lot, and I always sail with travel insurance. You should too. Get a free quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Here we go.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. This is Cruise Radio.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Doug Parker. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Cruise Radio. Very happy to have you here, my friend. A review of Celebrity Eclipse this week, along with staff writer Richard Sims, getting us caught up on the cruise news. Hey, Richard.
Hey, Douglas.
Sadly, we have to kick off another week of cruise news with a story involving bad behavior.
This is just, these stories are becoming as common as green on grass, aren't they? This time, it's a Royal Caribbean ship, the Wonder of the Seas. And I know that as soon as we start reporting, about bad behavior on a ship, people are like, oh, here comes another Carnival story. Well, it's not. This time, it is Royal Caribbean Wonder of the Seas. It appears that shortly after departing from Miami, there was some kind of altercation that broke out between a couple of passengers. You know how when you're growing up, your mom always says, if you two don't stop fighting, I'm going to turn this car around. Well, that is basically what the captain did. The captain was like, nope, we're going back to port. They turned around, went back where the local police as well as fire and rescue were on hand to take the guests in question. They had to go to the hospital to have some minor injuries treated. There are varying reports as to exactly what happened and how many people were involved, but we know that by Monday evening, the ship had once again departed on its 4-day sailing. And, while I don't know if the cruise line will take any action here, the two primary people involved have apparently decided not to press charges against each other. So there is at least that. But, man, come on, people, get it together. You're on vacation. Stop fighting.
And our next story involves the Carnival drink package, but no fighting this time.
Right. So when you heard the previous stories lead in, you assumed it was about Carnival. This time we do have a drink package story involving Carnival, but it turns out that Carnival had to issue an apology to cruisers in Australia after their website briefly listed premium teas and coffees as being included in the new zero proof package. They just rolled this out a couple weeks ago. While the package does cover a wide variety of things like sodas and juices and, basically non-alcoholic beverages, it does not include the premium coffees and teas, at least not in Australia. Those items are still listed, as we're recording this, as being included in other places, including the United States. And that's not at all uncommon, that when they roll out a package, a dining plan or something like that, there may be completely different inclusions, stipulations, rules, whatever, for one place as opposed to somewhere else. They might have similar features, but be different. Carnival did offer refunds to guests who had purchased this package under the assumption that they would be able to get all the specialty coffees and teas to their heart's desire. So they did offer that, but at least for now, Australian guests will have to keep shelling out money if they want those premium teas and coffees.
Yeah, that's a weird thing, right? I wonder if it's a tax reason or why they can't include coffee. I know every country has, their set of sometimes strange rules, right?
Bizarre. And part of me is like, wait, is this a country that drinks a lot of tea and coffee? And they're like, we won't get our money's worth. So, but could any country drink more tea and coffee than America? No.
That's true. And if you're booking a specialty dining venue on NCL, make sure you show up.
Yeah, or at least make sure you cancel if you change your mind. Otherwise, you're going to wind up paying $10 per person as a no-show fee. Say that 3 times real fast. I know people are going to call this nickel and diming and be all up in arms and stuff, but I'm going to support this particular change. I have been on more than a few cruises, including even just on Brilliant Lady last week, where you walk into a restaurant, you don't have a reservation, but you can't get a table because there are reservations, and then it turns out none of those people show up. That is what they are trying to avoid here. Is they're basically like, hey, make all the reservations you want, but if you make a reservation, either show up or we are going to charge you $10 per person for the inconvenience of holding a table that somebody else wanted and that somebody else, could have taken a seat at. You can cancel up to 2 hours before the reservation. And there's also a 15-minute grace period. Like, let's say you're in the casino and you're on a hot streak and you have a 4 p.m. reservation at Cagney's. Well, you can finish that hot streak because you'll have lost it all by 4:15, and then you can still get down there and make your reservation. In that case, you will not be charged by the restaurant. But if you show up at 4:30 or don't show up at all, then you will get that charge. It's worth noting that this comes on the heels of Royal Caribbean making a very similar move. And just like there, like I said, I think this is a great idea. I think, it will encourage people to not simply shrug and not think about the inconvenience they're causing when they make reservations and don't show up.
I want to just jump in and say some people may have lost it all by 4:15, but not everyone.
That's true. Oh, okay. Okay, I see what you're doing there.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell people why you're saying that?
We'll talk about it later. And we received word that yet another inaugural cruise, well, it won't be happening at the time we thought it would.
I swear we get more and more and more evidence to back up my theory that you should never book an inaugural, or at least not book one unless, you're willing to take like a 50-50 chance on it actually sailing. This time, it's the Disney Adventure. This was a ship that was supposed to launch in December of this year, but thanks to delays at the shipyard, it's being pushed forward by about 3 months to March of 2026. And that, of course, means that not only is the inaugural sailing, but all of those sailings between December and March, which means Christmas sailings, New Year's sailings, which people get really excited about, all of those are canceled. Guests booked on the original maiden voyage, the inaugural, which was a 3-night sailing from Singapore, they'll automatically be moved to the new inaugural, which is sailing on March 10th of 2026. In addition, they will get a 50% future cruise credit. If passengers, can't for whatever reason go on this new ship, they can cancel for a full refund and they'll still get the 50% future cruise credit, which I think is kind of cool. Whether you're able to sail or not, you're going to get that cruise credit for this inconvenience. Guests booked on any other of the cruise departures, like let's say you were in February, if you were booked on those sailings, which are now canceled, you will receive a full refund and a 50% cruise credit applicable to any cruise line sailing except for blackout dates. And, some of the other, there's always like little stipulations like, you can't do it on the third full moon of the month. But otherwise, you will also get both the full refund and the 50% cruise credit.
Next up is a story about someone doing something very nice only to be unmasked as a very bad person.
Yeah, this story angers me. I have given to more than one, GoFundMe campaign, that kind of thing. And you when you are moved to do that, it's because the story that you read was sad or heartbreaking or touched you in some way. And you're like, yeah, I'm going to give this total stranger money because, I am a good person. I want to give them money. In this case, a woman from Westmoreland County, whose name is Vanessa Lewis, she started a fundraiser because her cousin had a serious motorcycle accident and he was unable to care for himself. And people out there, very, very generous people, raised about $40,000 for him in the wake of this accident. But it turns out that her cousin's father contacted law enforcement because they discovered that funds from the account were completely missing. And they also saw pictures of her, the woman in question, not the injured party, but the person who set up the fundraiser, on a cruise ship, and thought, we know she doesn't have the money for this. There's money missing. Something's not right here. At the time, the account had, like I said, $40,000, but a few weeks later, it was reduced to around $3,000. It looks like she spent about $6,200 of that money on a cruise and the related items, buying new outfits and going to the casino or whatever. And, spending that money on a cruise would almost be acceptable if she had taken her cousin. But that does not appear to be the case. In fact, investigators say that not one dime of the money raised and taken out of that account went to her cousin or his care. If we had a sound effects board, this is where I'd be like, Doug, hit that big, beautiful boo button. But anyway, the woman in question has been charged with theft by deception and receiving stolen property. I don't want to say don't give money when you see something like this, but, be wary and make sure that, you are at least as sure as you can be that it is a legitimate person. Although, when you're in a generous mood, how do you check that out? I just don't know.
And we wrap things up with a guest jumping off a ship for a reason we've never heard before. At least I haven't.
Yeah, me neither. This guy gets points for originality. Apparently, Jay Gonzalez-Diaz spent most of his time on the Rhapsody of the Seas in the casino. And it sounds like he did pretty good too. So well, in fact, that he opted to jump off the ship once it had returned to port with around $14,500 in winnings. Why? Because he didn't want to have to go through customs and declare them and, have to pay the taxes on them, which must mean that he didn't, even though he had all that money, he must not have hid it in hand pays, because if you hid it in hand pays, they would already have the record and, he'd be paying taxes on it anyway. Many questions to be answered here. After leaping off the Royal Caribbean ship, he was picked up by a jet ski rider, which is just weird to me. There was some dude pedaling around on a jet ski, saw somebody jump off a boat and said, I should go help them and take him to shore. I guess that's somebody doing a good deed. But the folks with Border Customs and Patrol managed to catch the guy, take him to court, and he is going to face some very big fines. I assure you, he is going to pay more in fines for what he did than he would have if he had declared the money and paid taxes on them.
Like the intro to Miami Vice, right?
Yes, exactly. I want to see them riding along, except they wouldn't be on a jet ski. Didn't they have a really cool speedboat that they jetted around in?
Yeah. So we're going to talk about Virgin Voyages' Brilliant Lady on this weekend show. You and I will. But just as a little teaser here, give me some thoughts. What did you think of the ship?
I loved the ship. And I went into this ship, as you and I had discussed before, I went into this with big trepidations, which we will discuss at that time. But I was very surprised by what we found on board, and I am already looking to see sort of when I can get on another ship out of New York City, another Virgin Voyages ship, whether it's Brilliant Lady or one of the others. But yeah, it surprised me in so many ways.
I love the fact that I don't think we heard someone talk over the loudspeaker one time during the voyage, only during the safety drill before we left port and when we got to Bermuda. Otherwise, there was no announcements.
Think about that.
Yeah, it was so amazing.
There were no announcements. It was amazing. There were, let's not, get it twisted. There were a few things that I did not like. There were a few things that I expected to like and didn't like. But overall, it was a pretty amazing trip, and I can't wait for us to talk about it.
And we will this weekend. Staff writer Richard Sims, as always, thanks, my friend.
Glad to be here.
The world is constantly changing. Your place for news is still the same. Online and on demand at cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
Have a tip or a lead on a news story? Let us know. Email tips@cruiseradio.net.
Crystal is the host of the Luxury Cruising Podcast, and she just returned from a 12-night transatlantic cruise on Celebrity Eclipse from Fort Lauderdale over to Europe to Southampton. And she joins us on the line to talk all about her experience. How you doing, Crystal?
I'm doing great, Doug. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome back. It's interesting because every time we chat, it seems like you're on a Royal Caribbean cruise, but you kind of took a left turn here and did Celebrity on this voyage. So give me some pre-cruise thoughts. What made you want to take this 12-nighter on Celebrity Eclipse?
Yeah, we are pretty loyal to Royal. But we have a kiddo who is in 11th grade. And as people know, often spring break of 11th grade is usually when you do your college tours. Well, we came to October of 24 and we didn't have any plans to see colleges over spring break, and we didn't have anything planned. So, and we all know that spring break is kind of an expensive time to cruise, but I started expanding my search and I found this Celebrity Transatlantic that was a really reasonable price. Luckily, she also has a 2-week spring break as opposed to a 1 week, which many people have. So it really just fit perfectly for us.
Awesome. So you're in the Chicago area and you make your way down to Port Everglades, Fort Lauderdale before the cruise. Any pre-cruise time down there before you set sail?
No, we took, because the ship left on a Saturday and the kids still had school on Friday. So we took a pretty late flight in and got in actually early in the morning on Saturday. It was like 1 a.m.
Gotcha. So you go to board Celebrity Eclipse. How was the embarkation there? And how long did it take you from the curb to the ship?
The embarkation is really smooth. I don't remember which terminal it was. This was a different one for us. We went way all the way. Seemed like we were driving for 5 minutes even once we were inside the port. But even still, embarkation was smooth. We just sailed right through. We had done all of our pre-cruise paperwork and everything in the app. And we had one small snafu, and that was that. So now for Europe, starting just before we got there, for England, you needed to have this electronic visa. I think it's an ETA.
Yep.
And I had done all of them on my phone through the app, months before the cruise. But what wasn't clear in any of the paperwork was that they wanted to see that, your email, either in your email or in a printed out document, that you had done this visa. So I kind of had to stand there and search through, all of luckily I saved everything in one folder. But that took a little bit longer. But even with that, it only took about maybe 15 minutes from curb to ship.
Oh, not bad. Now, was this your first time on a Solstice class ship?
This was our second time. We had done a Solstice, a short 4-day last winter.
So what were your impressions as you boarded Celebrity Eclipse this time around?
It looked really good. Another ship happened to be that we are taking this one right before the ship went into dry dock, but the ship looks beautiful. It's very similar to, we were on Silhouette before. The layout is almost exactly the same, but if anything, she looked even better than Silhouette. I really couldn't see very much that needed to be cleaned up. It's a really nice sized ship. She just looked really, really good.
You make your way to your stateroom now that you were traveling with the family. Were you all in one room or did you have separate rooms?
No, this was the first time that we were sailing, not just in 2 separate connecting staterooms, but because we booked it so close to, embarkation and sailing, we were in side by side interior staterooms, but not connecting.
You didn't have the door, but you were right next to each other.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. And what did you think of as far as the room and everything like that?
I really loved the room. It was a good size for 2 people. I mean, if it was 3 people, I think those are configured only to take a maximum of 3. It would have been a little bit tight. But for 2 people, it was really comfortable. We were kind of also in this inside corridor. And so there wasn't a lot of traffic back and forth towards the front of the ship. So it was a really nice room. There were plenty of outlet spaces. I think there were 2 American outlets and 1 either European or English. No USB ports. Hopefully they'll add those with the dry dock. I will say that the closet space was generous, but the drawer space, I thought for 2 people, especially when you're going on for 12 days, was lacking. My husband had to keep some of his stuff in his suitcase because we just didn't have enough drawer space for all of our stuff.
Very good. Let's talk about the food on board Celebrity Eclipse. And we'll go up top to the Ocean Cafe, the buffet. How was the quality of food on your sailing? And did it ever feel crowded at times?
The Ocean View Cafe was fantastic. I really enjoyed the quality of food, the variety of food, because this was transatlantic. There were a fair number of, English people that were sailing home, and so they had I felt like they had a very prominent representation of English type food. They even would call the sausages in the morning bangers, which is I think what English people call sausages. And so, but there was always, a rotating international flair, whether it was Thai one time or Chinese or Japanese, Indonesian. So that was really, really good. It only felt crowded on sea days at the later part of breakfast.
Mhm.
The one big thing that I noticed that was different from the Ocean View Cafe and the Windjammer on Royal is that it was basically open all the time from probably 6 a.m. until whatever time at night, maybe 11 p.m. or midnight. You could always go in and find something. It wasn't all open, but you could go get something, a little snack to eat, or, get something to drink or get some ice cream.
And on the Celebrity Eclipse, I guess all the Solstice class ships, it's almost like an island concept in there at the buffet, right? So it's not just one line of food going from midship all the way aft. There's just different little islands around the buffet area. Correct? Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, yeah. Okay. There's like the cheese island and the dessert island, and the vegetarian and vegan food shared an island with like Indian food. Those were sort of like a mainstay. And then there was a separate area if you wanted, burgers and fries and pizza, and they would make the pizza to order. There's a tip for people. If you don't want the pizza that was just sitting there, you can, even if they have a pepperoni pizza there, you can ask them to just make you a fresh pepperoni pizza, and they will.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, like that. So then the main dining room, what time dining did you have, and how was your experience throughout the transatlantic?
Our dining time was 6 p.m. And we, had a consistent waiter. We had a consistent table. There was 4 of us, so we didn't have to share the table. The variety of the food was good. Our kids, I would say 60% of the time, they could find something that they wanted to eat. And so we probably ate there 60% of the time. Service was good. One thing I noticed that was a change from our last celebrity cruise was that they've picked up on this more, I don't want to say expedited, but it's a shorter dining time. We were there, a dinner that didn't feel rushed, was anywhere from like 60 to 75 minutes. I remember from when we took Silhouette, we would be sitting there sometimes for 3 hours. And I was like, it's only a 4-day cruise, and I'm spending way too much time in the dining room.
But as far as the food quality, and you mentioned like 60% of the time you found something you liked, what you did find was good quality?
Yes, very good quality.
Does this class of ship only have one main dining room?
There's 2 floors. And then if you are they have a main dining room for like suite class, aqua class, and retreat.
Did you do any specialty dining on this sailing?
We did. We ate at Le Petit Chef, which was fantastic. Sometimes you expect Le Petit Chef is more about the show and less about the food. But this food was really, really good. And we did Tuscan Grill. And Tuscan Grill was, to me, lackluster. It's kind of an Italian steakhouse, and the food quality was fine, but the presentation I thought was a little bit lacking.
With Le Petit Chef, talk to us a little more about that, what someone could expect.
Yeah, it's a really cute experience, especially if you have kids. They take, you have a plate, and they basically show a little movie on your plate of a miniature chef that is making your food. But the whole table is transformed, let's say, into a garden. And so you see him, you go and he like picks up the little carrots and he goes and he plucks a tomato. And maybe, I can't remember exactly, but like, let's just say he gets an olive and like presses it and like some olive oil sprays on the plate. And so there's 4 courses and there's 4 different little movies. And it's just a lot of fun. And I mean, you can choose from 2 different menus. And they probably had something for a kids menu for the kids. And it's just a really interesting experience. And like I said, you think you're going just for the show and you're not that interested. You're not that worried about if the quality of the food is not great, but the quality of the food was actually very, very good. The only drawback to Le Petit Chef is because it's a cruise, and if you can't decide between appetizer A and appetizer B, they'll bring you both. But they bring you both in succession, and the movie has to start at the same time for everyone. So if one person decides that they want 2 appetizers, you have to wait until they have finished both their appetizers before you can go on, and the whole restaurant can go on to their main course.
You mentioned you wouldn't give Tuscan Grill high marks. Was it because of the service? Was the food just not that good, or?
Yeah, the food was like, I think I ordered a steak, maybe a ribeye. And yeah, the presentation was not pretty at all. It was just basically a slab of meat on a plate, and the steak was fine, but it wasn't anything spectacular.
Gotcha. Any other restaurants or grab and go places you might have hit up? Is there like a poolside grill type place?
Yeah, it's not on the pool deck, but one above, they've got the mast grill, which is right next to the lawn. And Celebrity on their top deck has an actual lawn. And close to there, they've got the mast grill with burgers, and if you want like a veggie burger or whatever, and I think they may have hot dogs. The burgers up there were fantastic with all the fixings. I think there was also an ice cream machine over there. If you didn't want to go to the other ice cream machine, you can get yours there. My favorite place to eat was actually the spa cafe. It's actually in the solarium and across from where you go into the gym. And for breakfast, for about 2 hours during breakfast and for about 2 hours around lunchtime, there is a spa cafe, and they have small plates, and it's all like really healthy options and just the right portion size. Because a lot of times it's lunchtime and you just had this maybe heavy breakfast, and you're going to have dinner in only a few more hours. And so you don't want to go back to whatever buffet or get a burger and fries. So you just want like a light salad, or you want a little thing of like quinoa. They had this little like quinoa scoop. It was all delicious. It was all really healthy. They also had smoothies there. That was part of your drink package, and they weren't that expensive. They were maybe like $7 if you wanted to pay a la carte. They had these amazing oatmeal cookies that were great, and little breadsticks and whatnot. So my favorite place was definitely the Spa Cafe.
Nice.
And what else? They had, I didn't eat there, but my husband and daughter ate at Sushi on 5. Loved the sushi, did not love the dessert. I think they got like some kind of chocolate cake, did not love that. Cafe El Baccio is there. You can grab and go coffee, but you could also sit, which I thought was really, really nice. That they have ample seating there. So like Royal, I compare it to Cafe Promenade, where you wait for your coffee order and then they give you your coffee, and then maybe you have to, get another line to wait for your pastry or your sandwich. And then you go and sit in the booths or wherever, or tables. Here at Cafe Al Baccio, if you want to stay, they'll take your order. The same person will take your drink and pastry or sandwich order, and then you can go sit down, and they bring you an actual mug with like a little biscotti. It's nice. Like, wow, this is really nice. And you can look at the ocean, or it's right close to their central area. So you could look down if there was something going on, like an event or music, people dancing. You could look down while you were having your, coffee. And it was right across from their gelato place. I did get a scoop of gelato, which was fine. Nothing, spectacular. I'm trying to think if there's any other food that we experienced. Not that I can think of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about entertainment then. How was the entertainment on board during the 12 nights, and what did y'all think of it?
Entertainment was mostly good. It's a 12-night sailing. So the celebrity entertainers were consistently very good. They had a number of shows and there were no repeats, which I thought was really interesting. That this is a 12-night. It's not like where they're showing the same show, 3 or 4 nights so everybody can see it. They did a show. There was a 7 o'clock and a 9 o'clock, and if you missed it those nights, you didn't get to see it again. But their regular entertainers were very, very good. All of their different types of variety shows, which are usually some kind of music that's set to a vague story, but good. There was a comedian that was okay. There was sort of like a magician juggler that was good. A couple of people who they had a piano player come on that was exceptional. They had a group of like male singers that would do tributes to like Michael Bublé that we didn't really enjoy that much. I'm thinking on the main stage, I think that was it.
As far as around the ship, like for instance, and I don't know if it's really you'd consider it entertainment, but it's something to do like on a sea day with like the glass blowing show. Is that still up there?
Oh yeah, on this ship they still had the glass blowing, and people were going. They did a very good job of keeping people having regular programming. And the one thing that I noticed that I really appreciated was I realized after the first couple of days that there was a consistent pattern. I could predict sort of what was going to be available in the morning. Not exactly the same. It wasn't always like, adult coloring, but it was going to be some kind of craft. And there would be maybe some kind of trivia before the craft and after the craft. And then in the afternoon, this was the pattern of events that they would do. And same thing with the evening. So, when the game shows were at a predictable time, not always the same game show, but so that I knew, right? Like, oh, I wonder what the game show is going to be tomorrow. I can sort of plan my day around if I'm going to see what I'm interested in. I mean, I'm sure I can go in the app and look. I could have probably, but I don't know. I don't plan my days that far in advance.
Right. How integrated is the app in the whole experience?
The app is great. The app worked really well. Somehow I figured out at one point how to get the text notifications onto my watch. That was purely by accident, but that was a game changer for me. One downside too, if you're using the messaging in the app, is if you don't have the app open, then you don't get the messages. You have to open it on, and if you've been cut off of the Wi-Fi, you got to log back onto the Wi-Fi. So that's a downside to the app, but it worked great. It was always up to date, and you could make. None of these required reservations, but I just like having it in the calendar, and then it sends you reminders. You've got something scheduled, and I think it's like 30 minutes before, maybe 15 minutes before, which is nice.
Nice. And Celebrity has smoke-free casinos, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It was completely smoke-free.
Gotcha. So let's talk about the sea days as far as crowds and congestion.
We're going from Fort Lauderdale to Southampton. So the first stop, I know we'll talk about the stops, but just to give you an idea of like our trajectory, we went from Fort Lauderdale to Bermuda to the Azores to Southampton. So kind of in this northeasterly direction. The first 2 days, it was gorgeous. The sun was out. It was probably in the low 70s. And the pool deck was crowded, but you could always find a spot. I like to go out in the mornings and walk and do the exercise classes. There was no chair hogging. People were very respectful, and there was always a place to sit. Celebrity puts towels out, so you always had a nice little spot. There's a lot of nice stay beds and different kinds of seating around the pool deck, and there was never, a a shoe or a towel there for 4 hours just waiting for somebody to come back to use it.
I know like Norwegian Aqua, when it was coming across, it had to skip Boston because the weather was kind of nasty in the North Atlantic. Did you hit any of that nasty weather, rough weather, rough seas, rain, wind?
No, we dodged it. We had pretty smooth sailing most of the time. We had a couple of rainy mornings. The captain said, I was a little bit worried about booking an excursion outside of the cruise line in the Azores, because I read online that often because of the weather, that is one port that is skipped. But we had great weather. The captain did say that if we had gone the next day, we probably would have skipped it because we were sort of like just ahead of the weather that was coming, in that direction.
Does your son or daughter do the kids or teen club?
So I have two. Usually they do. The teen club for this sailing, and that for us was the one downside, is that there were very few kids on this sailing. And so the teen club was closed and they had seen inside, they were already starting to do some of the renovations for the dry dock, and was kind of also a makeshift storage space. So she was in they call it Camp at Sea with, all the kids were there all the time, and both of them went. The little one found kind of like her group, and they were this little, there were 2 or 3 of them that would just hang out together all day long, again, doing their sort of predictable things day after day. Mm-hmm. The older one went some, but not a lot, because there just weren't that many teens for her to interact with.
Let's talk about the ports of call. As you mentioned, it was Bermuda, Azores, then over to Southampton. How was your day in Bermuda, and what was the highlight for your family?
We split up. The younger one and I went to Horseshoe Bay, and it was the perfect weather for Horseshoe Bay. It was their first day. This was end of March. So it was the first day that they had opened their restaurant and a lot of their concessions. We were the first ship that was there. They were saying that was actually there on a decent day. And for people who have been to Bermuda in the summer, because you can only go, right? It's seasonal, just like the Med, because it's longitudinally, it's at the level of like South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And so it's not really warm in the winter. And I mean, it's warmer than Chicago, but it's not like, It's not like Florida warm. But in the summer, it gets just incredibly hot. And Horseshoe Bay is beautiful, but there's no shade unless you pay for your at $20 a pop, your chairs and your umbrellas. If you don't get that, you're going to be out in the blazing sun. But it was like mid 70s, and it was that perfect temperature where if you were in the shade, you were actually kind of cool. But if you were in the sun, it was the perfect temperature. The water was definitely cool, but not too cold for an 11-year-old to go boogie boarding for a little bit. So it worked out. The older ones, my older one went with my husband, and she went shopping in Hamilton, and they had a great time. Just walking around the whole time. They took the ferry over, and they also had a great time. So both did what they loved.
Awesome. And then after that, you went to the Azores. Now, gosh, and pardon my ignorance here, when you say you went to the Azores, is that just one stop or was it multiple stops?
That's just one stop.
Okay.
That's well, the Azores is a group of islands.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, and we went to Punta Delgada, and I don't know which islands, that somebody can write in and tell you which exact island that is, but I don't know. But there we booked it was supposed to be a whale and dolphin watching excursion. And unfortunately we didn't see any whales. We saw a lot of dolphin. It was actually pretty cool. We saw some huge pods of dolphins. I mean, probably 30, 45 dolphins swimming and playing, and, big dolphins and mother baby pair dolphins, which was really nice. Tried to get to see some whales, and they just couldn't find any. That one was also rough because the seas were really rough. And so going back, it was cold, windy, and bumpy. So that was a tough ride back.
But overall, a nice day.
Yeah, overall, and the excursion left in the afternoon, so we got there in time in the morning. We could walk around it's a nice little town with some walking shopping streets where we could, walk around and picked up a little food and did a little souvenir shopping.
So that basically wrapped your ports up.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. So how was the debark process once you got there? And because of the ETA you need now for going into the UK, did they do any checks on the back end, or was that just, pre-boarding?
Yeah. I had forgotten about this, but what they did actually was they must have gotten on at the Azores because we got a message in our stateroom that we had to report to immigration on the ship during one of the 2 sea days and show our passports.
Yeah.
And there were immigration officials on the ship, looked at our paperwork. I guess the ETA it's tied to your passport, so I didn't have to show them that document again.
Mm-hmm.
They probably just looked up our passport numbers in their system and said, oh yeah, there's a valid visa, and move on.
Yeah.
So that made the debark really, really smooth. I mean, I'm trying to think. We didn't even go through kind of like a customs type. Not that I remember. We may have, but it was very, very smooth to debark. The challenge was really after debark was getting to London.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because once you're off the ship and you're heading into London, what route did you wind up going? Was it a bus? Did you do the train?
Yeah, I had actually written a question that you and Richard had answered about the best way to get from Southampton to London and if we needed a reservation. I'm so glad that I didn't do a reservation. I did what Richard suggested, which is seeing how many ships were in port that day. And I think it was us, a P&O ship, and maybe a Princess ship. Mm-hmm. So I figured, well, that was okay. I also could not have predicted that because of the dry dock, they wanted everybody off the ship by 8:30.
Oh, wow.
I mean, drop dead. We were walking off at like 7:30, but we had to decide in advance if we were going to go to the bus terminal or the train terminal. They're not far, but the taxis, there's no other way to get there. I mean, you could walk the 2 miles if you really want to, but with 2 kids and 6 pieces of luggage, we were not doing that. Mm-hmm. So we ended up getting the train. We took the taxi to the bus station. I left them there, but then I went over to the train station to see what the time was. Yeah. And the train just ended up being a better time and got us there a whole lot faster. And that's like the walk between the bus station and the train station is less than 5 minutes. So, okay. Yeah, we were up in London probably by noon.
Do you have any first-time tips to offer anyone who might be doing their very first transatlantic cruise or sailing on Celebrity Eclipse?
I would say for a transatlantic, if you are a family, know before you go. Like I said, we were going on spring break. I had only had experience on Royal on spring break. I knew it wouldn't be, 1,000 kids like on Royal, but I was expecting more than 20. Yeah, you just know if you're on a transatlantic, no matter what time of year, you're probably going to have very few kids. And if you're a family and that's important to your family, then you may want to reconsider and do a different sailing.
Like getting the ETA, is that a pretty straightforward and intuitive process?
When the app works.
Mm-hmm.
The app worked for me eventually, but sometimes it was hit and miss. And then when they send you to, if the app isn't working, go to this website. I couldn't figure out where on the website to go to actually enter in our information. It may also be a phone issue because some passports, some American passports have like a chip inside them that the app is supposed to be able to read from your phone. I guess either because it's an Android or because it's an older system, my phone would not read that chip, so I had to enter everything manually. My older daughter has a newer iPhone, and her phone was able to read that chip. So maybe if you want to do it the smoothest way possible, get a newer phone. Use the newest phone in the household.
Yeah, because it didn't read the chip on I have the iPhone 15 Pro, and it didn't read the chip. And everyone I traveled with who had like iPhone 16s and everything, it didn't read the chip at all. So yeah, I guess it is hit or miss because I had to like put everything in manually, but whatever. Looking back, what was the biggest highlight of this cruise for your family?
For me, it was just having the 4 days at sea was just so nice. It is important though, when you have that many sea days, to at least create some kind of routine for yourself. Like I found the first couple of days I wasn't getting up to go to like the morning, abs class, stretch class. I would just sort of like wake up whenever I would wake up. And it just didn't sit right with me. But once I sort of like fell into this kind of routine, it was much, much better. The other part too is people need to realize when you're going in that direction and we put the clocks ahead 4 times within 12 days. And sometimes it was like 2 or 3 days in a row.
Yeah.
You have to just let yourself sleep. Like it is rough on your system. Mm-hmm. And that may be what contributed to the great deal that we got on it. And I don't regret it, but you just have to go in knowing like moving those clocks ahead so many times in a short period of time, that's rough.
Yeah, 100%. So your final thoughts of Celebrity Eclipse?
I have become a real fan of this class of ships. After my first one, I was kind of on the fence, but now I really enjoyed it. I don't know what they're going to do in dry dock. I can't wait to sail her again, to see it, and just to experience Celebrity again. I think it's a really great line.
We've been talking with Crystal about her 12-night transatlantic cruise from Fort Lauderdale over to the UK aboard Celebrity Eclipse. Crystal, the host of the Luxury Cruising podcast, where can we find you?
Oh, yeah, thanks. Anywhere you're listening to this podcast, you can find Luxury Cruising podcast. So this one was not super luxurious, but I found ways to make it a little luxurious for me.
Nice. Well, Crystal, thank you again.
Thanks, Doug.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,